It looks like Beyonce used dynamic pricing via Ticketmaster for Cowboy Carter Tour, and people are upset. Let's talk about it. By the way, I'm KJ Miller. I'm a founder, lecturer, and content creator. I love talking about all things business and pop culture. If you like any of that, be sure to subscribe. Now let's get into it. Okay, so first and foremost, before we dive into what we feel about Beyonce, is it right or is it wrong? Two things I think we need to get straight on. The first is, what is dynamic pricing? The second is, did Beyonce actually have a choice in the matter, or was this chosen by, Ticketmaster, Live Nation, the promoters, whatever? So number one, what is dynamic pricing? Well, according to Google, dynamic pricing changes different prices for the same product or service based on market demand. Ticketmaster uses algorithms that consider historical data and supply and demand to adjust prices. So that's the answer to question one. Dynamic pricing is pricing that changes based on how much demand there is for the tickets. And then the answer to question two, did Beyonce have a say in the matter, or was it up to someone else? Well, again, according to Google, yes, artists, their managers, and promoters decide whether to use dynamic pricing for concert tickets. They can negotiate the terms of dynamic pricing with Ticketmaster. And a few other things that were noted when I asked this question. And again, this is coming from Google Gemini. So if you don't trust the AI overlords, you can dig into these links yourself, okay? But I'm okay using the AI overlords. They say artists can decide how many tickets will be sold at face value before dynamic pricing kicks in. And I do think those of us who were in the queue, particularly during the first day of the Beehive presale, noticed that at first it looked like the prices were, fairly normal, and then it looked like it kind of souped up a bit if you were in there for long enough. Also, I think the people who had way more people ahead of them in the queue, like when I entered for both of the cities where I bought tickets, I never had more than 5,000 to 7,000 people ahead of me, but there were people who said they had 50,000 people ahead of them in the queue. So those people almost certainly would have seen higher pricing. The other thing that they noted here in this overview was why might artists choose dynamic pricing. And they say artists might choose dynamic pricing to deter touts from fleecing fans. Touts here, I think, is another word for scalpers. And in theory, higher face value prices decrease the margin on offer for touts or scalped tickets. So, you're going to see fewer scalpers in there buying up tickets if it's already a raised price, because they know when they go to resell it, they're not going to be able to make much money on it. And I think another reason, if you're an artist, that you might be willing to do that is if a ticket is actually worth $2,000, as in there is someone in the marketplace willing to spend $2,000 on that, you might feel like, okay, well then why shouldn't I get that money? If that's how much someone is willing to pay to see me, Beyonce, why should a scalper get that upside? They didn't do any work. I'm the one on stage. I'm the one dancing and singing and everything else. So, okay, so that answers the question of what is dynamic pricing, and does Beyonce have a say in whether or not she does it? The truth is, yes, she does. This is a decision she would have made along with her team, her promoters, her managers. And they did also note in this overview that some of the artists who have decided not to use dynamic pricing include Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, The Cure, and Tom Grennan. And I'm sure that's a short list. I'm sure there are others who have made the same decision, and also a long list of people who have decided to use dynamic pricing. I saw an article cite Bruce Springsteen, for instance, for using dynamic pricing. Okay, so with all of that said, now that we have laid the groundwork for the conversation, I think the question then becomes, how do we feel about that? How do I feel about Beyonce using dynamic pricing? And I will say the reason I even decided to have this conversation is because someone hopped up in my comments on TikTok on a video that was not related to Beyonce at all and said, are you going to talk about Beyonce using dynamic pricing? Now, she may not have meant it to come across as but that's how I read it. Okay. That's the tone of voice I read it in. I think because it was on a video that had nothing to do with Beyonce, I was like, oh, okay. She's kind of calling me to the mat. Like, oh, you always have this, that, and the third to say about Beyonce. Beyonce's your fave. She's the greatest of all time, blah, blah, blah. So what are you going to say about this? That's how I read it. If that's not how you meant it, whoever it was that commented, okay. But then I did think about it. I was like, okay, well, how do I feel about this? And I have a few thoughts, unsurprisingly. Thought number one is, of course, as a consumer, do I want to pay more money if I could be paying less money? No, I don't. Okay. Let's be clear about that. And my tickets were quite expensive. I'm not going to say the exact number because I don't need y'all judging me and judging my pocketbook. I save so that I can splurge when I want. But they were expensive. Look up how much the people are paying for 100 section in Chicago, night one, to get a flavor of how much I spent. Okay, so my tickets were quite expensive. And obviously, if I could have spent less, would I have loved to have spent less? 100%. No doubt about it. However, does that equate to me being mad at Beyonce? No, it doesn't. It quite simply does not. And there are a few reasons for that. Number one, I was always fully expecting this show to be more expensive than Renaissance because she is doing literally half the dates. She did 56 dates for Renaissance. When she first announced this tour, I think it was about 24, 25 dates. She has since added a few more, and I just checked. Now it's at 29 dates. But when she first announced it, it was half the dates. And so did the amount of demand to see Beyonce suddenly get cut in half? No, it did not. All right. It absolutely did not. So in my mind, just as someone who understands how supply and demand works, I fully expected that these tickets were going to be more expensive. It just makes sense. She is still Beyonce. People still want to see her. Demand is still going to be high. But if you cut the number of shows in half, demand's going to be higher. Do you see what I'm saying? So I went in expecting that these tickets were already going to be more expensive. So that's reason number one that I'm not mad. Reason number two, and this very much goes along with point number one. If I'm Beyonce, if I'm sitting in Beyonce's shoes and I know, okay, I'm cutting the number of performances that I offer in half, but demand is still going to be demand because I am Beyonce, I'm going to want to find a way to make sure that I am maximizing that demand and maximizing the price. Now, I know a lot of people will say that's selfish, that's greedy, she's already a billionaire. Okay, and I can't fault you if that is how you feel. But at the end of the day, to me as a business person, if I knew I could charge more for my product and people would pay that price, and then I didn't charge more for that product, that would not make me a smart business person. It would make me very kind. It would make me very benevolent. It might make me more beloved by the people of the world, but it wouldn't make me very good at business. Do you see what I'm saying? And Beyonce is a business woman. And so as a fellow businesswoman, I just personally cannot fault her for making a good business decision. She understands I cut my number of shows in half. Demand is going to be through the roof. I should make sure that I'm maximizing the amount of dollars I am getting for this product that I'm putting out, knowing that I'm putting out a top-notch product, and she is. I stand by it. I don't think anyone puts on a better show than Beyonce. Okay. So that's reason number two that I personally wasn't mad. I think she was making a good business decision, and I can't fault that. Number three, I actually have heard plenty of people say that they bought their ticket prices and they were very much in line with Renaissance, including my sister. My little sister let me know that she got tickets for night 3 in Chicago, and for whatever reason, it didn't look like dynamic pricing affected her, maybe because she was one of those people for whom it hadn't kicked in yet. I don't know, but there are a lot of people who felt like the prices that they paid were in line with any other show that, that they've seen, particularly, I should say, any other Beyonce show that they've seen. So it's not as if everybody suddenly had to spend $1,000 to get a ticket to Beyonce. That just quite simply isn't true. So I do think that indicates that, one, she did have a good number of tickets available at face value before dynamic pricing kicked in. And also, from what I've heard via TikToks that I've watched, the Verizon presale holders, whatever, also weren't subjected to dynamic pricing. So I understand we're a little bit upset, but it sounds like plenty of people still found a way to get reasonably priced tickets. I wasn't one of those people. To be clear, I spent a lot of money, but other people did. And I'm very happy with my seats. And the third thing I will say, and I am going to bring in Taylor Swift to this because, like that article or like the overview mentioned, she, I guess, refused to do dynamic pricing, I'm assuming for Eras Tour. And And so I know somebody somewhere is going to be like, see, and this is why Taylor is better than Beyonce, because she doesn't gouge her fans. Okay. But Beyonce also doesn't release 50 variants of her album. And I personally don't have a problem with either of those things. I don't have a problem with Taylor releasing 50 odd variants of each album because she wants to make sure that she stays at number one forever and ever. I'm in. And I don't have a problem with Beyonce using dynamic pricing. And the reason I don't have a problem with either of those things is because both of these women are business women. Both of these women care about record sales, care about album sales, care about the money that's in their pocket and that's in their family's pocket, care about awards. They care about these things and they are playing the game. Taylor is allowed to release 1,000 variants of her album if that's what she wants to do. That is the way the system works. Billboard has decided that each variant will continue to count for your album sales, even if you release a new variant 30 weeks later. Okay. Billboard decided that, and Taylor decided, I'm going to take advantage of that rule. Likewise, Ticketmaster decided we can introduce dynamic pricing. We can up the prices midway through the sale if that's what you want to do. And Beyonce said, yep, I'll take advantage of that. And frankly, I don't feel as though I'm just going to be mad at someone for playing the game and being smart at playing the game. Rarely am I mad at someone for that. If I'm going to be mad at anyone, I'll be mad at Billboard and I'll be mad at Ticketmaster. And I will say that we as consumers need to use our collective voice and our collective dollars to change things politically, to change these systems. But one individual person taking advantage of a system that already exists, I don't know that that's where I'm going to start to point my ire. And that's particularly true when at the end of the day, no one is forcing me to download any of Taylor's variants, much less the 33rd one. And no one is forcing me to purchase Beyonce tickets. I quite simply don't have to go, and you quite simply don't have to go. So I get the frustration around it. Truly, I do. As I said in the beginning, if I can pay less, it's frustrating to pay more. But as the meme that's been going around has said, when you ask me how much am I willing to pay to see Beyonce, the answer is the price. For me, she's a once in a lifetime artist. Every chance I get to see her perform live, I'm taking that chance. That's me. I also don't spend a lot of money on seeing artists. The only artists I've seen in the last 3 years are Beyonce and Taylor Swift. So if it costs a pretty penny, that's a penny I'm willing to spend because I'm not out here spending my pennies on a bunch of other people. Again, that's me. I do understand the frustration, but when it comes to Beyonce, baby, I'm going to see her every time and I'm going to spend the money. And I have never thought to myself that it wasn't worth the money. Never, ever, ever, ever. Anyway, that's just how I feel. I know some of you probably disagree vehemently. I'm happy to chit chat in the comments if you want to let me know your thoughts. And as always, if you like this sort of content, be sure to subscribe. I'll see you next time.